We're very happy now to welcome Vicki Drybrough to the open mic stage. She is our first feature, and I did not know this. She was born on Gabriola. She graduated from UVic in 1973. She lives in Port Alberni now, and her work has appeared in Island Writer magazine, several anthologies, and Mark Forsyth's book, From the West Coast to the Western Front. Stuart McLean read her short story on CBC Radio and published it in his book. And she is a founding member of Words on Fire and has read at the Fat Oyster, Wordstorm, and 15 Minutes of Infamy. Welcome, Vicki.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Jackie, for inviting me to read tonight, and I thank Char for providing us with Zoom, and for everybody who showed up. It's wonderful. I'm going to begin by reading from this book called Both Sides Now, which is a collection of short stories by Derek Hanbury, Libby Moran, and myself. And the story I'm going to read from is called The Trouble with Girls. Buck Warner stops digging and leans over to grab a clump of roots that are clinging to the earth in old Lady Burton's garden. Once the plant comes away in his hands, he beats it over and over against the side of the wheelbarrow, watching the soil fall away from the tangled root ball. When there is nothing left but the pale legs of the bare roots, he drops the twisted mess onto the pile of discarded plants in the half-full wheelbarrow and picks up the shovel again. A movement out on the road makes him look up. It's her. For 3 weeks now, Buck has been watching her walk past on her way to the beach, floating almost, hair all long and loose as the wind puts its hands in it and tosses it about, puts its hands way in where it is warm against her head, pushing and nuzzling, making her hair flow and twist as if it were alive. He pretends to dig, leaning over the shovel, but his eyes watch her from under his hat, watches the muscles in her thighs stretch and tighten beneath the pale blue denim of her jeans. She is wearing a long cream-colored sweater, textured and soft-looking, her bite-sized tits just visible in its folds. He has to look hard to see them. Then his gaze falls to the beat-up canvas deck shoes she is wearing without any laces. There is something familiar about them. He looks again and then he knows. They are the exact same ones the girl in The Chosen wore. The exact same. For a moment, he is thrown off balance. Why is she suddenly in his head with her huge frightened eyes and skinny white thighs, reminding him of things he didn't want to remember? He turns around fast, trying to focus on the trees, the house, anything but her stupid face, her pathetic pale body splayed in front of him. His heart is hammering so hard it feels as if it has broken loose and is flinging itself against his ribs in a desperate attempt to escape. He gulps in big mouthfuls of air, trying to get calm. Hi, Buck. He spins around in time to see her lift her hand and wave. How does she know his name? He lifts one hand from the shovel and starts to say hi when he hears the old lady on the porch. Hi, Melissa. Hello. He has forgotten as she waves and smiles at old Lady Burton. She shouldn't do that, he thinks, a feeling of having been overlooked rising to tighten in his chest. I saw her first. She should talk to me first. If the old bat hadn't come out just then, this girl named Melissa might have stopped and spoken to him. Those other girls from before, he had to make them notice him, but this one spoke to him first. She even used his name. She noticed him. Until the old woman interfered, took her attention away from him like he wasn't even there, as if he didn't count. A familiar anger starts to take hold, so he reaches under his shirt and touches his knife, the one the cop took and then said he could keep. Right away, he starts to feel calmer, stronger. The tightness fades from his chest. He takes a deep breath and sees that she's gone past him now, looking straight ahead, long muscular legs flexing and stretching, flexing and stretching. She has the softness of a puppy, but the legginess of a colt. Melissa. He watches her until she disappears on the access path that leads to the beach. He turns back to the weeds and wonders if she's part of the group that parties down on the sand every weekend. He doubts it. She looks too innocent to be one of those stuck-up girls who think there's something special. Girls who smile and act friendly until you try to talk to them, and their lips get that sneer and they flip their hair and turn away. They were all crazy, those long-haired kids that had their love-ins every Saturday night. Oh, he knew what went on down there. Smoking dope and drinking, there was lots of that. Buck knew because he sometimes bought beer for the boys who greeted him in the parking lot of the hotel as if he was a good friend, slapping him on the back and asking how he was doing. He loved the attention, the feeling of being one of the guys. After all, he was only a few years older than them, so he always did as they asked. "Don't you tell nobody who got this for you," he warns as he stuffs their bills into his pocket, even though he knows they will rat him out if they get caught. It's worth it just to feel like he belongs. They take the beer, climb into their car and speed away, the echo of their rusted out exhaust coming back to him through the dark alley of evergreens as he begins the 2-mile walk back to his cabin, carrying his six-pack and reliving the warm feeling of their camaraderie. Some nights he hides in the bushes above the beach and watches as they sit around the fire, talking and laughing, smoking their funny cigarettes and drinking. It usually starts out very peaceful. A couple of guys with guitars and everybody singing, their voices drifting to him across the sand and logs, soothing and sweet in the dark. They are so easy with each other, he thinks. Laughter seems to tumble from them, and they toss it away as if it is litter until the beach is filled with it. Later, they turn up the big transistor radio and listen to some DJ they are all crazy about. Sometimes after they've been drinking a while, an argument breaks out and one or two of the kids leave, but usually there is just some crying and a girl or two moving to sit next to someone else. Later, when it was really dark, couples would get up and disappear from sight behind the logs. Once he crept over, hoping to see what they were doing, but it was too dark. Another time, one of the girls stood up and took all her clothes off. Then she started dancing slow and snaky-like around the fire. He wriggled closer and lay flat on his stomach on the sand between the hummocks of grass, so he could see her tits and the dark smudge of hair at the top of her thighs. He kept waiting for one of the guys to get up and grab her, waited and watched, wanting one of them to unzip his jeans and give it to her right there. What's wrong with them? Buck wondered. Couldn't they see how much she wanted it? He thought about going down there himself, not to join them, just to throw one into her and leave, but he didn't want them to know he was watching. Now there was the girl named Melissa. Every Saturday afternoon, she came down the access road headed for the beach. She never walked with anyone, and he never saw her come back. He waited once in the bush just off the road, warming himself by imagining the naked girl from the beach in his cabin, up against the wall, moaning and crying as he gave it to her. Then her face turned into Melissa's face, and he pounded his head with his fists to drive away the evil thoughts. He didn't want to have thoughts like that about her. She was sweet and innocent, and he wanted her like him. He must find a way to talk to her. He just wanted to hear her say his name again, to find out where she went from the access road. He waited all night, but she never came back. The second excerpt I'm going to read is from my upcoming novel, and it's set in 1963. After school, I stay in town and head for Fisherman's Wharf. Against the breeze off the sea, the wharf smells of creosote and fuel. I pick my way down the gangway, being careful not to catch my pointed-toed shoes on the wooden strips. As soon as I step onto the float, I'm in an alley of hulls and masts. Down here, the smell of purple gas mixes with frying bologna. An old man in dark wool pants and faded blue shirt over his Stanfields is sitting in the stern of his boat. He looks up as I walk past. I try to smile but feel awkward and embarrassed. He stares at me as if I have done something inappropriate, so I turn away and keep walking. Another man glances up as I pass the stern of his boat, but I look ahead where loud voices and harsh laughter spill from the deck of a seiner, where a group of men have gathered. As I approach, the smell of booze overwhelms the smell of the sea. One of them turns to look at me and howls like a wolf. "Hey, sweetheart, what's your hurry?" calls another. I look away and walk faster. My mother never told me how to behave on a dock surrounded by men. "Stay away from there, you're just asking for trouble," would have been her advice. It's no place for a young girl. But here I am, not asking for trouble, just looking for Sam. I feel like a lost chicken walking past a row of kennels. A young man steps out of a small aluminum boat. His pants are filthy and so are his shirt and jacket. He is carrying 3 fish and a fishing rod in one hand, a red metal gas tank in the other. He nods and says hello. "Do you know where the Lulu Bell is?" I ask. He points. "Down at the end, turn left." I thank him and hurry on past more boats, the smell of creosote in the sun burning my nose and throat. When I turn the corner, I see Sam stepping off the Lulu Bell with his rucksack over his shoulder. I wave and smile, but he stands there staring back as if he doesn't know me. When I get close, he finally speaks. "Well, look at you, all fancy with your hair up." "Guess what?" I say, ignoring the dig. He starts walking. I have no idea. "Lester came by to say you can have the job if you're still interested." "When was this?" "2 days ago." I'm sure that Sam will come home now. We walk along in silence until we reach the parking lot. "Are you going to take it?" "I don't know, maybe. I'll go see him tomorrow." "Will you stop and see us? Mom and I miss you. I think Dad does too." Sam snorts. "Cold day in hell." "Come and see us, okay?" I watch as he turns away, heading to Auntie Min's place where he stays when he isn't fishing. I turn and start for the ferry wharf, which is now located on the other side of the freight and rail yards, where boats load lumber for Japan and the US. I hate walking across the acres of wide open yard that smells of grease and oil and that metal smell that large machines have. Sometimes I have to dodge freight trucks, pulling cargo trailers, always making sure the driver can see me before continuing on. When I get past the truck yard, I still have to cross the rail yard with its many tracks that smell of creosote and rusted metal. One of the locomotives is running and there is the stink of diesel, the throbbing of the engine as it pushes the rail cars around. I always feel dirty by the time I reach the ferry. When we get to the island, I catch a ride with our neighbor, Mr. McKee, who lives with his wife Annabelle across the road from us in a little cottage tucked away in the bush. Annabelle has fluffy brown hair that is always escaping from her hairpins and hanging against her neck. She laughs even when no one says anything funny and wears filmy flowered dresses under a dark wool cardigan. Mom says she had a nervous breakdown before they moved to the island and still isn't well. One Halloween, when we were trick-or-treating at their house, Sam jumped out of the bushes with a gorilla mask on. Annabelle shrieked and dropped my treats on the step. She ran back into the house screaming and calling for her husband. We hightailed it out of there. I wish Sam hadn't done that. They are very kind people, and her Halloween treats were amazing. When I come through the door, my father is sitting at the table, writing. My mother looks at me to see if I've been able to talk to Sam. I nod and carry on to my room. After a minute, she follows me in. "Did you see him?" "Yeah." I take off my coat and throw it on the chair. He didn't seem very excited about the news. "Did he say he would come?" I lie, so I don't have to see the disappointment on her face. "He said he might drop by after he goes to see Lester." She smiles and hugs me. "It will be so nice to see him again. I hope he can stay for supper." "Yeah." I hug her back, glad I didn't tell her about a cold day in hell. Thank you very much.
That was good, Vicki. That's nice.
Oh, thank you. That makes me want to read that novel. I'm so excited for you that you're working on that. That's going to be great. Super story there out of Both Sides Now by Derek Canterbury, Vicki Drybrough, and Libby Marine. That's from our own RCN Media, and it's really splendid. I got to kind of proofread the stories, and I was blown away by the talent there. So we're looking for some good entries, hopefully, from y'all for our upcoming Port Alberni anthology. So thank you again.